Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. One of the sectors that I'm really quite interested in is the pharmaceutical biotech sector. And, September is that month where a lot of people are changing jobs, thinking about their careers, what they're going to do in the future. So I thought it'd be interesting to check in with one of the top recruiters in the pharmaceutical area. Ruth Frazer is president of Pharmacruiting Life Sciences Executive Search. She brings a wealth of industry experience and expertise in identifying and recruiting elite executives to help companies leverage their competitive advantage and candidates land their dream jobs. With a career spanning over 25 years in the life sciences industry, Ruth is a trusted executive search partner who takes the time to understand her clients' and candidates' unique needs to consistently develop exceptional personalized services that drive her clients' success. She has an unwavering commitment to excellence, passion for the industry, and desire to ultimately impact patients' lives, and have contributed to her and Pharmacruiting's success. Fantastic. So we're going to talk about the life sciences industry. We're going to talk about careers. We're going to talk about recruiting. We're going to talk about looking for a job. Ruth Frazer, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. It's fantastic to meet you and really honored to have you invite me on the show. So
well, it's a pleasure to meet you, and thank you so much for joining us. So tell me, off the top, what are some of the biggest advances that life sciences companies are working on right now? It's such an exciting sector, always moving forward. What are some of the ones that excite you?
Yeah. So, if we think about when we go to the doctors to give us the prescription, it's really many, many years in the making to get that prescription. So behind the scenes, you've got the drug discovery. That's where the pharmaceutical companies are looking at discovering the drug. Then they move that, and they call it a candidate. They move that to drug development. And then it moves on to preclinical, which is, where they're testing it on mice or animals, and then it goes into the patients. So along the process, this is 15 years in the making. You then go to the clinical research, phase 1, 2, and 3, FDA approve it, and there it is at the doctor's office. So again, 15 years in the making.
15 years, seriously? That's a long time.
It is, it's 15 years. So the technology that we're seeing right now is actually from 15 years ago, but they're still rebuilding it. So I think, to answer your question, the hottest area that really, really excites me is precision medicine. So that's personalized medicine, if you will. And that's where, pharmaceutical and biotech companies are really looking at, designing the drugs to particular genes, the next generation sequencing. So that's really the hot button. And especially when it comes to cancer, cancer's going to get us, or heart attack or something. So cancer is really close to my heart. So that's one of my, passions, precision medicine. I'd say the second is cell and gene therapy. So that's where they're modifying the genes. So you've got the CRISPR technology. I would say immunotherapy, and that's where, your own body, for example, the T cells will fight and build up to fight off the disease. And I think coupled with, all the different technologies that are coming out of the lab and moving through the clinic, it's artificial intelligence, right? That touches every areas of our lives. And I think, for investing in pharmaceuticals, it really is, a quicker way for us to live longer lives. I think what's most interesting about the industry as well, like pharma and biotech have got smart. They're not trying to do everything in-house. So they're turning to the CDMOs, which are the contract development manufacturing organizations. So that's designing the drugs as well. And then the contract manufacturing right across the supply chain. So again, when you walk into that doctor's office, like this year alone, there's been 37 FDA approvals. That's year to date. Last year was 37 as well. So massive industry. Contract manufacturing alone is 250 billion. So going to 50 billion in 2030. So to your point, we're going to talk today about life sciences and why it's a really, really great career, and it's here to stay.
So, we've had lots of comments about the Great Resignation, about low unemployment, about it's a buyer's market for employees. Is there a talent war in the life sciences business right now?
Yes, Brian. I mean, absolutely. And I would say it's not an employer's market right now. It really is the candidate's market. So as you mentioned, we've got the Great Resignation. We've navigated COVID. great resignation where people are just tired, they've had enough. And then there's the great regret. So the great regret is really the boomerang people that've left the job and now they want to be rehired. So I think, with the talent war, because there's a lack of the talent, pharmaceutical companies, biotech, medical device, they really need to look at why there are turnover issues, look within the company, how they can retain that talent, and different aspects could be career development, get people to stay, give them mentors, coach them, give them more money, make sure that people get the market rate. So I think overall, yes, there's a talent war, and that's because there's a lack of really good quality people that are out there in the life science industry.
A lot of people got used to working remotely over the course of the last couple of years. How's that impacting hiring, recruiting today? Do people still want to work remotely? Do employers want people to work remotely, or does everyone want people to come back to work?
So funny, the first thing people ask me whenever I approach them, because I specifically headhunt, right? Is this job remote or is it hybrid? And, as soon as I say remote, they're all in. And I think how that benefits employers, now it gives them access to candidates right across the country. I did a search, I'd like to say about 6 months ago, and this company had gone through probably about 20 recruiters looking for a specific position. They actually ended up hiring someone really fantastic from me. This person relocated, but they came from out of the industry. So did the company settle? I'd say no, because they got somebody who was amazing, but there's not always that success story. So I think that really attributes to why there's a talent war. People want remote.
I hadn't heard this comment about the great regret before. So is that because a lot of people left the workforce during COVID and now want to come back, or explain that if you could?
Yeah. So the great regret is thinking the grass is greener on the other side. The grass isn't greener. They might have gone for more money and they realize this isn't a culture fit. It's a culture shock, or whatever the reason, somebody took the talk, brought them in, gave them more money, and now this person doesn't have quality of life for whatever reason. So they're calling it the great regret. And there's always going to be, some kind of expression, whether it's the rust out, the this, the that. But yeah, the great regret is going on right now.
We're chatting tonight with Ruth Frazer. She's the president of Pharma-Recruiting Life Sciences Executive Search. We're talking about jobs, careers, opportunities in the life sciences businesses. Stay with us, everyone. We're going to take a break for some messages and be back in just 2 minutes with Ruth Frazer. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. It's a really pleasure for me, a real interesting time for me to be chatting tonight with Ruth Frazer. She's the president of Pharma-Recruiting Life Sciences Executive Search, because, it's September and January, which I am told are the two biggest months for people to change jobs, for people to be looking for new opportunities, and for companies and recruiters to be looking for all of us to join their companies. And so I thought that it would be really helpful to reach out to Ruth, because she is a specialist in the pharmaceutical biotech business, and understand what's going on and what we all need to do if we're looking for job opportunities. As I mentioned, Ruth Frazer is the president of Pharma-Recruiting Life Sciences. She's been in this role recruiting in the life sciences sector for over 25 years. And I think she knows both companies and what it takes to land those big jobs incredibly well. Let me ask you, if I could, Ruth, what's the market like in the fall now of 2023? You're saying it's more of a employee market rather than employer market. So what's happening? Are people active? What do you got to do to be successful?
Right. So now is the hottest time. Summer is over. You've heard that before. People really are thinking about, are they happy in the job? So now is the time for them to look. So what's happening is they're interviewing. They're going to be getting job offers over the next 6 to 8 weeks. And what that will mean is their jobs are going to be open. So really the next 3 months are critical. So start applying and really start planning for the first quarter 2023.
And how do you apply? What are some suggestions you can make? Is everything done on LinkedIn or Indeed, or, how are jobs placed these days?
Yeah, so there's a lot of job boards that are out there. And I would say the number one is Indeed, as well as LinkedIn. So don't hesitate. If you see a position, just apply for it, whether it's with a search firm or whether it's with a company. I think those really two are the top ones. I find some of the other, niche job boards, I think really just LinkedIn, and Indeed. But typically a search firm won't post a job, especially if it's confidential. So I think, as well as doing your networking and going to networking events, keep an eye on your LinkedIn box, your email box, because right there in your inbox, hidden, and you have to go look for it, there might be a ton of messages from recruiters, from search firms. So that's the best tip.
Oh, really? Trying to recruit you. So recruiters like you reach out, cold calling people that have got the job experience, looking for them to hire. And that's in that second box on the inbox.
Correct. Yes. So I don't think people realize I think LinkedIn do it probably on purpose, but they don't realize they might not have seen the message. And if you're applying from your phone, it might be no reply at linkedin.com. So I would download the app as well, and then just keep checking, because that could be your next opportunity.
Should people be reaching out to recruiters and sending them their resumes or telling them they're interested?
So that's a good question. If there's a position that's open and the recruiter is advertising, absolutely. But here's the pitfall of just approaching a search firm, and it happens all the time. And this is what's giving recruiters, search firms a bad name. I must get probably about 10, 15 resumes a day saying, hey, Ruth, I want to schedule time with you. Can you help me look for a new position? So I can't help someone look for a position. We can't help unless we're engaged on the search. But I know for a fact that recruiters will take somebody's resume, blast it out to a company, put information about that person, not the name, and say, we have other candidates if you're interested. And they'll use that like bait to try and get the job order, which I think is absolutely terrible. And quick story for you. So my son just graduated university. On his email was probably about 30 or 40 emails from a UK search firm that were trying to position and sell a chief medical officer or a CEO. And if that candidate knew that they were just part of a mailing list being sent out, they probably would be mortified. So I think the tip there is apply for the job. You can send a search firm, your resume, because if something opens up, they'll reach back out. But the really good search firms will come and find you.
Really, that's interesting. So don't be proactive in reaching out to search firms. So how do you make yourself known to them? By doing what on LinkedIn? What do you do to make sure that people notice you?
So I would definitely connect with the search firms and recruiters on LinkedIn and just look at the activity, but just be super active, look for networking events and just use whatever resources you've got, but don't rely on a search firm to go find you a job, because likely you're just going to create competition for yourself.
That's interesting. Let's go through different sort of age categories, if we could,
Yeah.
and you can give us some advice on what people should do. So Generation X, which is 1965 to 1980, what should they be doing? What should they be thinking about in regards to a role?
Sure. So these people are age 43 to 59, and there's a well-known quote that I love to refer to, and it's never too late. It's never too late to be who you might have been. So I think, for these people, they're looking at, or they should look at what they're passionate about, what's their reason for being, what gets them up in the morning. They're planning for the retirement, they're planning for the kids' college, but, they're held back. So they really have to look at what makes them happy. And if they know that they want to go for a new job, then just go for it. We've talked about how, that's LinkedIn, Indeed, job boards, but don't hold yourself back. And the worst thing that can happen, you end up with some job offers. You don't have to take them, but at least then you'll know what your net worth is. And then you'll feel good about, is the grass greener, or am I going to be part of the great regret?
Okay, so is it different for the next generation, Generation Z, that are 1997 to 2012? Do they look for things differently?
So potentially, because these are your 27-year-olds to 42, they've got a few years in. And I think, they're calling this generation like the hustle culture. They'll work super hard, really hard, but they're also looking for quality of life. And I think this is the reason that this age group is looking for a new opportunity. And when the time comes, it's like you get the TGIF text, capital letters, the emails. I mean, we all know what that's like, right? Sunday afternoon, we feel really depressed. We're like, oh, it's Monday, Monday blues. And then you get the texts that are, oh, hump day. So I think for this group, they really are starting to look at what do I really value? I want the quality of life. I want to earn a ton of money, but just don't be afraid to experience the unknown. Again, just go for it.
What about first timers? How do you get that first job?
Yeah. So first timers, I think, whether you've graduated college, whether you're just leaving school, I think you really have to look at an industry that you're passionate about, right? So for many, obviously, that I come across, healthcare, somebody has been sick in their family. They may know someone who's in the industry. But I think the biggest tip for, this age group, the 18 to 26, is you don't have to plan out your whole life. Don't have to plan out your whole career, what you're doing the next 40 years. Just really look at it as a stepping stone. But I think the best advice is lean on your parents. You've got an inbuilt network that probably can introduce you to somebody. There's nothing shameful about that. So I think that's the best advice for that group. Just plan how you're going to get there, what industry you want, and then just look at it in chunks where you want to be, let's say 2-3 years.
So I started out in the restaurant business, and then the hotel business, then the entertainment business. Then I got my MBA, and I ended up in the amusement park hotel restaurant business. Then I got into the beer and conglomerate business, and then the pharmaceutical biotech business, and then the hockey business, and then the real estate business.
Yeah, fantastic.
So I've been in a whole bunch of different businesses, always with a, finance, strategy, real estate bent, but a whole bunch of different industries, a whole bunch of different businesses. I've lived and worked in 3 different cities in the United States, 4 different cities in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Should people be in one job, one career their whole life, or am I the norm, or am I a job hopper?
So you're certainly not a job hopper. I think, you've looked at life. What do you value? What do you enjoy? I really have a lot of admiration for, your background. And I think at the end of the day, how people see it, skills are transferable, right? So there's reasons to stay at a company, there's reasons to move a company, and then there's reasons to go within a different industry. But, you really have to be passionate about what you do. Does that answer your question?
So when you take a look at someone like me that's been in a bunch of different industries, is that a positive or is that a negative?
No, I think it's a positive. At one point I was doing some recruiting for a patient recruitment company, and the COO, he just wanted to see people from Deloitte who had been consulting, and he figured out people in consulting, they've come in, they know how to assess the business, and they also know how to, create the plan, but they're frustrated because they're purely strategic and they want to own the problem. Sure enough, went off, got people from, the life science division, the consulting, and brought them in. They never thought they were going to work directly for, a pharmaceutical company. But I think, if you stay in one company a long time, you can, hate your job, you can become stagnant, you might be dissatisfied with your work. You really have like a narrowed perspective. So there's many benefits of moving to another company, moving to a different industry, but I wouldn't job hop probably, I'd say every 2 years might be fine, but you've really got to give solid reason why you're leaving, because no one's going to want to approach you if you've got 5 months, 8 months. And I skip over those resumes, I'm like, nope, doesn't look good. And then I just move on.
So mine have typically been 3 to 5 years with different companies. That's okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. But I would look at your whole broad skill set, depending what role, you've 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 been in private equity, you've been in sport. It's really the same methodology in business, right?
But yet some people, when they're 20s or 30s, when they graduate from university, are struggling trying to figure out what they love, what they're passionate about.
Right.
And think that they're going to pick one thing and be doing that one thing for their whole career. Are you saying that's not the case?
Correct. And that's what I was saying from the beginning. Pick an industry you want to go into, and you never know. You might bump into somebody that might be like in clinical research or whatever. And there was one girl actually that I interviewed, and she had a degree in criminal justice. And I said to her, "How did you get into the pharmaceutical industry?" She said, "Oh, I bumped into somebody, I bumped into a rep." And I was like, "Gosh, I would love that job." Guess what? She got to know the rep, took the card, got an interview, got hired. So you don't have to figure it out. You've just got to be happy.
So bumping into people, networking is still critical.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I listened to one of your previous podcasts about the lady on the airplane. I thought that was fantastic. But you must meet so many different people. And I think that's what's fascinating. You meet people from, everywhere, all different walks of life. And it's just super interesting, but just network. So whether you're networking online or whether you're networking, remotely, keeping in touch with the old, colleagues, I think LinkedIn really is your best resource to network.
So do you have any suggestions in that? I like the story of this individual on the airplane was that before we had landed, before we got to the gate. So after we landed, before we got to the gate, she had already connected up with me on LinkedIn.
Right.
And on the business card, she wrote, where we met and what we talked about. And then, within the next few hours, I got my first email asking for the follow-up. And so it was someone that I will never forget. Are there any suggestions you've got on what one can do in smart networking?
I think pretty much what we've talked about, just business card exchanges, right? So you've got, local business events or webinars, just network, and, enjoy it. It doesn't have to be like the end goal. You just meet a lot of fascinating people on the way, and they'll remember you.
I had one person I interviewed who said that when they woke up in the morning, they asked themselves, who's my friend of the day going to be? So she really had an attitude of not networking, which sounds to me sort of like, you're going to get caught in someone's web, but making new friends. And that really is, I think, one of the keys to networking is that you got to think about it as making new friends, making new contacts, making people that you want to interact with in the future, whether they're going to help you with a job or you're going to mentor them, or whether it's just someone that you're going to exchange some interesting information with.
Right.
Well, we're going to take another break and be back with Ruth Frazer. And I understand she's got a really favorite, impactful saying from the Dalai Lama that she wants to share with us because she thinks it's going to provide us with some guidance. So we're going to be back in 2 minutes with Ruth Frazer of Farmer Recruiting. Stay with us, everybody. Back in 2.
Hi, Brian.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Ruth Frazer. She is the president of Pharma Recruiting Life Sciences Executive Search. Ruth, where are you coming into us from? Where are you calling into us from?
Philadelphia.
Excellent. What's Philadelphia like?
It's getting cooler. It's getting dark. I'm actually originally from England, but I've been in America 33 years. Not going to show my age.
I spent a bunch of time in northern Philadelphia, northern Pennsylvania, and southern, Princeton, New Jersey, etc. There's quite a large pharmaceutical presence in New Jersey and northern Pennsylvania, is there not?
Absolutely. The massive tri-state area. Obviously, you've got Philadelphia, New Jersey, down south, you've got the Research Triangle, and up in Boston, the big one with all the, the biotechs is Cambridge. So yeah, it's the heart of everything here.
My one of my prior companies was headquartered in Toronto, but had a fairly large office in New Jersey, just on the outskirts of the built-up area. And there were so many pharmaceutical companies in that area; it was just amazing. And the networking was spectacular, and the poaching from firm to firm was incredible.
Right.
I understand you've got a favorite quote from the Dalai Lama that has given us some guidance in this area. Can you tell us what this is?
I do. I'll actually read it out to you. So the Dalai Lama said, when asked what surprised him most about humanity, he said, man, because he sacrifices his health in order to make money. Then he sacrifices money to recuperate his health. And then he's so anxious about the future that he does not enjoy the present. The result being, he does not live in the present or the future. He lives as if he's never going to die, and then he dies having never really lived.
Why is that so meaningful to you?
Because I think we're all the mouse on the wheel, and that we really don't think about what we value. Ikigai, what gets us up on the morning? Yep, we have to pay the bills, the mortgage, but people don't ask what really matters to me. What's your reason for being? So Brian, let me ask you, you've got a lifetime of a career, what matters to you? What's your reason for being?
It's an interesting question, because one of the things I really enjoyed about the pharmaceutical business, and I have to tell you that it's something that you don't get in a lot of other businesses, and that is that you felt that you were really helping people live more healthy, long lives.
Right.
And that sense of satisfaction that you get from, I was in the beer business, and nothing wrong with the beer business. I really quite enjoyed it. But selling more beer, I didn't feel like I was really helping society. I was making money. I was making a good product. It was a quality product, et cetera. But I didn't feel like I was really helping society. Some people would argue drinking a beer actually helps you and your attitude a lot. But, developing products that would lengthen life, improve life expectancy, improve the quality of one's life, improve one's health, was extremely rewarding. And so I think that doing something that is helpful in that regard, I think, is very good. I'm in the real estate business now, and I actually had a meeting today with some people talking about the seniors business, seniors homes, and it was some people that used a Jewish word that described effectively doing something that was very respectable for the world, respectable for society. And I love that it's if you're taking care of people and making sure that they enjoy their last years on this earth, and extending their life, improving their health, improving their sociability, their activity level, making their last years wonderful. There's something nice about that. So I guess one of the things that I would say to you is ensuring that you're doing something that is positively impactful on other people's lives. Right.
Yeah. So we're all there. So for your listeners who are driving home, that's the big question. What matters to you? Like, why do we get up every day? If we were to look into the future, look in a crystal ball and say, I want to write my next chapter. What does that look like? That's a question we all need to ask.
I think your concept of Ikigai, which is this Japanese concept that is the intersection of 4 questions. It's what are you good at? What can you get paid for? What does the world need more of? And what are you passionate about? And, I've looked at that often because I'm good at math. But I would have hated being an actuary or an auditor. And so therefore I had to figure out something that made use of what I was good at, but then also I was passionate about. And I was passionate about, you'll find this surprising, when I was a teenager, I was a lead singer of a rock band. I was passionate about that, but I wasn't terribly good and no one would pay me for it. And so therefore I wasn't going to make a great living and a great future out of being a rock singer. And so you got to find that thing that you're passionate about, but also that you're good at and that people will pay you for. And hopefully that the world needs more of, that you're not doing something that absolutely everyone else is doing.
Right. Wise words. Well said.
So tell me, if you could, about what's going on right now in the marketplace in regards to this talent war. Should companies be using search firms? Should they just be posting on LinkedIn? What's the right strategy if people are out there running companies? What should they be thinking about doing?
Yeah, so of course, we expect that our clients are going to post jobs, right? People are going to apply. But I really think, the best candidates, and I've been told this time and time again, the ones that aren't looking. for a new position. So don't get me wrong, you can get great candidates. So whoever's listening, apply for the job. But when you turn to a search firm, then they're going to go out and find the best person for the job. And they're really going to do the in-depth interviewing to make sure that somebody's a culture fit, culture add, and has the right skill set. So I think that's why companies do use search firms that don't have access to the talent. And this is the hidden talent.
And how are you getting that? Are you going through resumes on LinkedIn? Do you have like this big database of resumes or what?
So I'm not going to give you my tips, of course, but it's really just building up the network with the ear to the ground. People that I might have remembered. I might go to somebody and say, hey, I'm looking for XYZ. And they'll say, oh, John's looking for a new opportunity. So we tend to go down rabbit holes, which we love because the path leads to the next one. And then we end up with a bunch of candidates that are interested. But for me, it's not transactional. Somebody has to really be a great fit for the role, but the candidate has to be perfect for the candidate. So I'm actually happy when someone says, you know what, Ruth, it's a good opportunity. It's not right for me. No, because like for me, the industry, what I really love is just the relationships that I build and that I can make a difference. The people that I'm bringing in are going to be helping patients. So I think that's why companies might use search firms, because they don't have time to find the hidden talent, find the right people, and just, really dig to see if the person's right. It's just, yep, resume looks good. Let's hire them, move on.
So I get an email, if not once a day, maybe once every 2 days from a different recruiter asking me if I know anyone that's interested in blah, blah, blah specific job. Are they trying to recruit me, or are they just doing what you're saying, which is networking to see if I recommend someone?
So it's funny because sometimes I do email people at work, right? And say, do you know anybody? And I just don't want to put it on the email. And sometimes they come back and go, what, I'd be interested. Or I might say, do you know anybody? I can see that you're new in your role. So if you're interested, reply. But I think it's good that, these people are networking. That's how we do it. We network. We go down rabbit holes.
What are some misconceptions that people have about executive search firms?
So I think what we talked about before, when it comes to the candidates, they think that a search firm can help me find a job. So we've talked about that. Don't go through that pitfall. But I think, the other misconception is I'm busy. I'm not going to reply. I don't want to bother with the search firm. Well, guess what? I actually remember if somebody doesn't reply to me, and I might email them again. And then a year goes by or 5 years go by and they go, Ruth, I'm looking for a new opportunity. So now they come to me because they want help, right? So I think it's always good. And I love it when people just reply and say, Ruth, I'm really, really happy in my role. Let's stay in touch. So I think the misconception is, I'm not going to respond to a recruiter. It's not worth my time, but respond, take the time out.
So it comes to your firm, your concept about don't be transactional about things, create relationships, create networks, create friends.
Right. Absolutely. I think another misconception from companies direct, we've talked about that they feel that they can, just post the job. I think, they think that they can do the headhunting as well, but because we do it day in, day out, we actually come up, with much better candidates, and they may not even be able to approach the competition. But time and time again, my clients have said, you know what, Ruth, I wish our internal teams would, be like you and do what you do. Maybe we should start changing our process, but they just don't have the bandwidth.
How costly is making a bad hiring mistake?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, because there's the direct cost and the indirect cost. So the direct cost will be all the recruitment fees, right? So whether that's advertising yourself, all the interviewing, the rehiring, so that's all the direct costs. I think for the indirect costs, the training and development, and the time wasted. I would also say the risk of losing customers as well, because if that person is a bad hire, you're going to lose customers, you're going to lose business. And I think turnover, a bad hire creates turnover. We've heard it all before. You bring in a new CEO or COO and they just fire everybody. Then everybody just wants to leave. So you really have to make sure somebody is a not just a culture fit, but culture add as well.
So I had someone tell me just the other day that they weren't impressed with someone on an interview. It was on online, a Zoom interview, because they were wearing a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
What are some of the rules of interviews that you would apply, particularly, I think, internet online interviews versus in-person interviews? Do you have any suggestions?
I do. And I actually wrote a list because this is something that I wanted to, discuss today, because I do want to be a resource, to our listeners. So I think number one, the camera, the position of the camera. I can't tell you how many times that someone comes on camera and I can just see their glasses and up the nose. I know it's funny, but, like me, I know I probably keep twisting my chair, but that's because I have a bad back. But, be centered, like look directly into the camera. So that's most important. Another one with camera, I hate fake backgrounds. It kind of creates that lack of transparency. Like for me, this is my office, this is your house. Hey, we all work at home. So camera is number one, and the position of the camera and the background. Number two, sweatshirt, right? Not dressed professionally. Take time to dress up. The first interview is going to be on camera, probably.
Yep.
So, yep. Number three, person doesn't do the research. So many times I'll talk to somebody and I'll say, what do you know about X company? Well, I was really, really busy, so I hope that, you could tell me about it. Next. I'm not interested in moving forward with that person because they're not, unless genuinely, I might have just set it up an hour before and they're willing to jump on the phone, but you've got to do the research.
I've always found that people that, are as interested in interviewing you to make sure that it's the right opportunity for them are far more impressive than the people that are just sitting there hoping that it's like, mud against the wall. I'm just, shooting to see if something sticks.
Right. And it's funny because about 3-4 weeks ago, and the candidate was funny. One of the tips I said was, you've got your first interview, you've got 30 minutes. You don't have to decide if this is right for you in 30 minutes. The goal is for you to be on camera, get them interested so you can go to the next step. Don't make them feel that you're being interviewed. So he was funny. He told me afterwards, he said, yeah, I told the hiring manager that he's like, Ruth says that I wasn't supposed to interview you. So they laughed about it, but it was funny. There was the humor in it. And I think one of the biggest pitfalls is personality, like just be yourself.
Yep.
Quick story. Last year, I had somebody go in for an accounts payable role, right? The girl was very professional, great background, looked fantastic. Answers were short. She didn't smile once. And I was thinking, and I said to her, just make sure you are authentic. You are you, like relax. And she went through the process. Everybody she interviewed with said she was great, but she didn't smile. So the advice is just be yourself, relax, enjoy the interview. It's just a conversation. I can give you a bunch more, but
please.
That's just okay. All right. So people can't walk through the resume in a timely fashion. If I'm on for 2 hours with someone, I'll say, all right, 10 minutes, let's walk through your resume. They're going down the rabbit hole and they just keep on talking and talking. And I get bored, I'll be honest with you. So, stay on track and just be prepared to listen to the questions and walk through the resume. And most important, explain the gaps. That's what I want to know, why you left a company, and make sure all your job moves are on there. Because I will have done my homework before I speak to you, so I can see you're at ABC company and it's not on there.
We should do? We should do a trial interview and see what questions you ask and see how well I answer. That might be fun.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that, Brian. I would love to do that because it would be, we could actually have, one of the guests on just come on and, ask them a question. But yeah, that totally would be fun. Another one, don't talk negatively about a company or anyone because, someone doesn't want anybody negative. So I think that's really a big tip. Another one, admit your weakness. If I was to say to you, Brian, hey, Brian, what are your weaknesses? What would you say?
I'm impatient.
Good. Why are you impatient?
Because I always want to move forward. I want progress. Sometimes I don't take enough time. I'm impatient. I'm impatient for success.
So how does that impact others that you work with?
I'm hard driving. I'm competitive. I need people to work hard, and some people might not be able to meet my objectives for them.
And how do you handle that? Because you know your coworkers don't like you.
I set goals, and I monitor people. And when I'm frustrated that they're not addressing things as quickly as they need to, I give them some help and some guidance.
You see, I love that, right? You've given a true weakness, impatient. I love that one. You know, you have to be honest. I dug deeper. I asked you another question. You told me how you problem solve, how you work with others. So you just shared more information, which is great. And it was just a conversation. So I think, you know, be yourself. And last but not least, have intelligent questions for the hiring manager. Like, don't just try and impress them. Don't say, how much vacation do I get? That's an instant turnoff. So just be prepared to ask really valid questions. You know, like, you know, what's your strategy? If you're working for a small biotech company, ask them what the exit strategy is. Ask them what the cash runway is, you know, these kind of questions, because if you're going to go into a role, you really need to know what's important.
Well, and because I think, and we're going to talk about this in the last segment, I think culture fit is important, and you have to understand whether the job is good for you, the career is good for you, the company is good for you, as much as they need to know whether you're good for them. Anyway, We're going to take a break for some messages and come back with Ruth Frazer of Pharma Recruiting in just 2 minutes. And I'm going to ask her a couple last final questions about culture and what she wants us all to take away from this discussion today. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. My guest tonight is Ruth Frazer. She is the president of Pharma Recruiting Life Sciences Executive Search. She's been in the recruiting business in the life sciences sector for 25 years. And we've got some really good suggestions from her on involvement in networking and LinkedIn, Indeed, in reaching out to those recruiters, in responding to them when they call, and getting prepared for interviews, etc. You said that culture is important. Ruth, why is culture important? Why is cultural fit important?
So companies look for a culture fit, and that could be personality fit, someone's values, someone's beliefs. And that's got to be, you know, obviously aligned with the company. But I think you don't want to just look at culture fit. You have to look at culture add. Otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of mini-me's that are going to think the same thing. You know, you're not going to spark that creativity. So culture add is really important. What is that person going to bring, and how can the company evolve, you know, whether it comes to, you know, the processes or relationships, you know, just really, it can't be just a fit. You want to, you know, bring in value as well, and what someone brings to the table.
You said that it's important to have passion for your job, love for your job. What do you love about your job?
That's a great question. The relationships, you know, the relationships with candidates, just getting to know them, asking them fun questions, and then just having that bond. And then we go to job offer, they either accept it, they don't, but we've just had fun along the way. And I think really changing people's lives. I'll give you a quick example. There was a chap last year that I recruited to a patient recruitment company, and he was out of work. He lived in the middle of the country. He was ready to go take a job in retail. I reached out to him. He really was down on himself. He landed a fantastic job. And, you know, next week is his 1-year anniversary. But so I think, you know, just changing people's lives, that's what I really, really love. And just getting to know people, ultimately helping patients.
What do you want to leave us with? Is there one message that you want to conclude this interview with?
Yeah, I think it's something that we talked about, which is what you value, what you care about, you know, the 4 aspects that you mentioned, Ikigai. Just really take a look at your career and what you want out of life, because it's never too late.
Ruth Frazer, thanks so much. I think this was a really helpful conversation. If people want to reach out to you, should they connect up with you on LinkedIn, or send you their resume, or wait till you call them?
All of the above. It's fine. Let's network and get to know each other. Yeah. But Brian, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having me.
Ruth Frazer of Pharma Recruiting Company, Executive Search. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And maybe I've just got to say that I do think that one of the keys in this whole conversation is the networking. I think it's really critically important. And Ruth mentioned this, don't be transactional, be relationship oriented. If you're just transactional and you wait until such time as you're desperate for a new job to network and contact, it's going to feel transactional. It's going to feel like the people are being used. And so therefore, offer some suggestions, offer some help, make those contacts when you don't need them. And then when you do need them, people will be there far more willingly for you. That's our show for today, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online, even from Philadelphia, at www.saga960am.ca. All my podcasts and videos are available after the fact at briancrombie.com. Thanks so much, everybody. Good night, Ruth.
Bye-bye.